We are among the most economically stratified countries in the developed world. The gap between rich and poor here is wider than it is in dozens of other industrial countries that are not very, very different than we are. And there are many reasons why this is so, but one of the reasons that we've never addressed is the continued marginalization of black people. Worse schools, worse education, worse training, worst opportunity, everything combining to keep this people pushed to the side. And that has, to a certain degree, increased since the days of the Civil Rights Movement, the days of 1960, the sit-ins and the marches. It's gotten worse rather than better. And we don't seem inclined now, in 2008, to do much about it even now. You think of the message as Dr. King's message,
Yes.
which is an inclusive message. We're all in this together. It's Whitney Young's message. We're all in this together. We did go off it, and we didn't go off it just because other black people said that we're not all together. We're separate and barely equal, nowhere near equal. We did it because white Americans began to adopt that idea too, and wrongly took cues they thought were coming from the black movement, that they weren't needed, weren't wanted, and divorce themselves from this ongoing struggle to make our democracy better, make it more perfect than it is. And again, that just set us back enormously, and we may be only now coming back to the realization that we're all in this. But, you know, legacies aren't established by single figures. They're established by masses of people. And we don't now today have the engagement of the mass of people in the same way we did when Dr. King, say, was alive. And I think until we begin that re-engagement, King's legacy will be celebrated on his birthday every year, but never all the other days of the year. Whitney, I don't think himself shouted or yelled, but he suggested that shouting or yelling might happen if you didn't pay attention to him. And so he was able to move a major important portion of white America to become more accepting of the Civil Rights Movement, and in a way he became an interpreter of the movement for them. And had we not had this interpreter, had we not had this go-between, it's arguable that progress wouldn't have been made as rapidly as it was made. And as it was, we always thought it was going too slow anyway. If you're going to make racial progress in a country like ours, in a community like ours, the best way to do it is to make sure everyone is engaged in it. Everyone thinks, I have a stake in the outcome of this. I have to be involved in it if I want it to turn out the way I want it to. And he was just so good at convincing people who didn't want to be convinced that they had a role to play in this. And Whitney Young had the kind of personality that it was difficult to be mad at him or to argue with him. He was the kind of person whom you might call a name when you were far away from him. People called him Whitey Young, you know.
Yes.
But when you were with him, you wouldn't dare say that, because his dignity and his carriage and the way he comported himself and the way he argued for black people made you know that Whitey Young was not who he was. He was Whitney Young. I was in Atlanta when he died in Africa, and like many, many people, I had conspiratorial ideas about it. Here's this powerful man, this powerful figure, one of few people like him in the United States. And to lose him and to lose everything that he brought with him was just an enormous blow. And I couldn't imagine that it could have been accidental, that something happened that no one malign had anything to do with it. I immediately thought something awful had happened. And black Americans, you know, have been the victim of so many conspiracies, even to the present day. You see the attempts to suppress voters in the presidential election in 2008, that it's natural for us to suspect a conspiracy when something else happens.